Morning and welcome to our July 9th board meeting, and we'd ask Commissioner Drannell to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning all, and I entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
Second.
Administrator Crush, were there any changes? I
I
don't
don't
believe there were any.
believe so. Jamie, was there anything last week? No.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Introduction of his new employees. I think we've got some today.
We do. I'll go first, and we'll just stay at our seats here since the person I'm introducing is running the cameras here. I'd like to introduce Abby Lewis. She's the new administrative support specialist in the administrator's office, and Abby's a lifelong resident of LeSueur, and I'll let her give a little more background on her education and experience.
As you said, I'm Abby. I born and raised in LeSueur. I attended the College of St. Scholastica in Duluth. I formerly worked with Cambria for about 6 years, and most recently was at Capstone Publishing in North Mankato.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Good to have you.
A little less driving now.
Little less driving, yes.
And
Dale has an
Dale has an introduction.
So I don't get the option of staying in my seat, huh? Supposed to be one of these up here. Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Where are you going? Good morning, all. Introduce Brian Conlon. He's our new project manager in the technologies area. And much like Abby, I'll give him a chance to say his 2 cents.
Spent the last 11 years working for Garmin up in Chanhassen in the aviation software world, and happy to also not be commuting as far.
Nice.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes.
You live here in St. Peter, or?
I do, yes.
Oh, great.
Good.
Thank you. And I believe our next item is our consent agenda.
I didn't know that.
I'd entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. And I think you had a comment.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to comment on the cooperative agreements, and I appreciate the working relationship between Nicollet Schools, St. Peter's Schools, and our social services to make sure the kids get what they need, so I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Anything else, sir? We're good? Guess who's up next? Glad you came early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name's Tim Carlsgaard, and with me is Grant Stevenson. We work for Excel Energy. I was here over a year ago with Tricia Rosenfeld, who's our community relations manager, now Tricia Duncan, to tell you about this transmission line project, power line project called, we call it Huntley-Wilmarth. We're back today because last week the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission approved the project, and Grant is the project manager, and we felt like it would, we wanted to walk you through, you know, what has taken place and what will be happening over the next year. I got a big map here on a board mounted that Grant can kind of walk you through as well, and there's individual maps that you each have. I also gave you a packet, and in that packet are two background fact sheets. There's also a letter, which this letter is going to be sent to approximately 165 people along the route, just to give them information about the fact that they're going to be contacted now about several things. So there's only about Grant tells me about 7 miles in Nicollet County, but I know that's important. Your county's being impacted, so I'll let Grant walk you through what we're doing today.
Good morning.
Morning, Grant.
As Tim mentioned, on June 27th, the Public Utilities Commission made a decision that involves routing a portion of the line in your county. This comes about 18 months after we filed our application. The state held public meetings, public hearings. The public was able to propose alternative segments. There were approximately 20. 2 of those segments were incorporated in their final decision of the purple route, which was the westernmost of the routes. There was also a 5th route that was proposed by a task force that was made up of local government, counties, townships, cities. Nicollet County had a representative at those 3 meetings. There's an environmental impact statement, and then on the 27th, the Public Utilities Commission voted. In the red box area, along the Watonwan River between Lake Crystal and Vernon Center, the PUC held out authority for that 2.5 miles and asked us to do some additional outreach and restudy about how to cross that sensitive environmental area. But we have permission to begin preparation for construction in all the rest of the area. The line leaves the Wilmar substation and turns west and crosses the Minnesota River and enters your county and crosses Highway 169 and traverses to the west along or near the northern edge of North Mankato. My opinion, this should be a net benefit for people in that area because we will remove an existing line that are H-frame, we call them H-frame structures, two-pole wood structures, and replace them with a single shaft pole of 6 to 8 feet in diameter that will contain the new line and the existing line. It should be a little easier to farm around. The center line is offset 80 to 100 feet from the existing one, just to give us some construction flexibility so that the existing line can remain in service. The letter that's in your packet will be mailed to the affected landowners that the line crosses today. We've engaged survey firms to do some section corner monumentation in both counties that will begin soon. Once we gain landowner permission, we'll do environmental and cultural surveys, those sorts of things. So the easement acquisition period with property owners will start now and run through the spring. In May of 2020, construction activities should begin, and our goal is to be complete in December of 2021. And I just wanted to mention that landowners are compensated for easements, compensated for crop loss if there is any, crop is compensated for any other damage that may happen, drain tile, driveways would be repaired, and even compensated for future year compaction loss that may affect crop damage. That's the information we have for you. We want to make you aware of the decision and the timing, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Start on that note.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lipton.
After you get the new one in, you're gonna take the old one out?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a timeline on that, or?
It'll happen, it's immediately after.
Oh, really?
Or during, but most likely we'll completely construct the new line and
Then dismantle.
disconnect the old one.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Mr. Stevenson, can you just remind folks what the need is for this project?
Oh, sure, thank you. The Midwest Independent System Operator is an organization that dispatches almost all the generation in the mid-continent, Midwest area. And with the development of generation south and west of here, mostly wind, there's just not enough transmission capacity. It's constrained to get the power to market. So this project was identified from a number of alternatives that were studied as the most beneficial and best way to solve the problem. Their study shows that savings on electric bills over the long term, over a 20-year period, will exceed the cost of building the transmission line. And in the end, the Public Utilities Commission agreed.
So it's a congestion point.
It is a congestion point, right? That's correct.
It's worth noting too that, as you've seen for yourself probably, there's a number of wind farms, not only that have been there, but continue to be built, and solar, there's a large solar facility near Marshall. If you look at the queue, as they call it, the list of projects that have been submitted to MISO for approval, which takes several years, the list is very, very long. It's pretty much all wind and solar, mostly to the west of here, to the south. None of those projects can move forward until there's more capacity on the system.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, thank you for your presentation. I'm old enough to remember a commercial that said the electricity is penny cheap from NSPTU. How close are you folks to that reality, that former reality, or the former promotion of that reality?
In what way close?
Do you see Excel being affordable?
Oh, I do see it.
And tell me
Excel.
how.
We have a culture within Excel Energy of keeping costs down, and it's been that way in the 35 years that I've been there. Before projects like this go forward, there's great scrutiny over whether we are providing the alternative that is the least cost to solve the need. Now, there were other options for this project that were less expensive, but in the end, the authority relies with the Public Utilities Commission to balance economics with impacts to natural resources and to human environment and agriculture, and they selected this route.
And so, just so I'm clear, what is your main source of power to create the electricity?
Our power comes from coal, nuclear, wind, natural gas, solar.
Is coal number one?
Right now, I think it's neck and neck between renewables and coal. I mean, our system in the upper Midwest for the 4 states that we serve, it's very close between our 2 nuclear plants are over 20% of our generation. Wind and solar, we are mandated to have 25% by 2020 of our generation be from renewables, and we're going to beat that. So right there, that's over 25%. Natural gas is now a bigger mix, coal, some hydro. But, we have made a pledge to be 80% carbon free by 2030. We don't think we'll have a problem meeting that. The cheapest generation, this might answer your question, the cheapest form of generation right now is wind and natural gas. We have pledged now to close all of our coal facilities in the next 15 years. So what's left of, we already shut down several of them and replaced them either with natural gas or with renewables.
And one thing that maybe gets directly to your point, this organization, Midwest Independent System Operator, we are past the days where Xcel Energy Generation serves Xcel Energy customers and Great River Energy serves Great River Energy, et cetera. The wholesale electricity market's been deregulated, and every generator bids in. And MISO, Midwest ISO, dispatches that generation from the lowest to highest in order until they meet the capacity needs of the day. And that's one of the things that helps keep the cost down.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One final note on this project, and you were talking about easements earlier. In Nicollet County, this is going along existing line routes, is that correct?
But offset from the center line, so we'll need to acquire some new easements.
Okay.
And that's, the existing transmission line comes from the Lakefield area, and it's very important to get particularly wind to market. So we were able, the original line went cross-country across farm fields. So the poles are already an obstacle. So if we offset a little bit, it's still an obstacle, and that lets us leave the existing power line in service. That energy can get to market. So we'll be buying a new easement from those folks.
So would it be fair to say that maybe it feels almost for a layperson, almost parallel, like
It
you
is
have
parallel.
to keep the existing line to keep the power
It is.
going, and right next to it, you're doing a new line.
Exactly. There are a couple exceptions where we need to be on the same center line, but for the majority of the line, we're paralleling, correct?
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
is any homes in the way by going parallel, or they're all far enough away?
They're all far enough away. There's, the closest home on the Nicollet County section, for sure, is several hundred feet.
Okay. Related subject, is there anything new with your power poles north of Cortland where the cement platforms are underwater?
Is the pole in the water?
Yeah.
Or just the concrete?
Well, the concrete is, you can't see the concrete anymore.
Okay.
It's been that way for over a year.
I'm not personally familiar with that area, but I'm imagining the concrete, there's a reveal. Is the concrete of those much taller than the normal foot?
Well, the concrete was set the same height as the road, and the road's underwater also.
Oh, okay.
So the answer would be no.
That's what would be.
To my knowledge.
Right,
yeah.
But we're a large company.
I
Yeah.
understand.
And I'm usually involved in constructing or
Okay.
reconstructing transmission lines and just don't see the maintenance side.
Well, there was an
personally.
Excel gentleman at one of the meetings, and he said, we really don't like it for that water to be on there over winter, and it was on there over one winter already. So, okay, wrong person.
It's all right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anything else you'd like to share?
No, thank you for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much for your time, and
Appreciate
it is, we're glad that you've had what appears to be a pretty good success with this, and hopefully, the transition will go well.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We reached the point of our meeting where I would ask for anyone seeking a public appearance. Ask them to step forward and state their name and their business. They will have 3 minutes. No one is stepping forward. We will continue on. HHS. It looks like you have to bring your own chair this morning.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Morning. What have you got for us today?
Well, this morning I have our managed care procurement. So this is a process that we go through every 5 years where DHS puts forward the request for proposals for healthcare services to recipients of families and children on medical assistance and Minnesota Care. Our region was required to submit questions to the providers so that they could respond back to us and let us know how they might plan to address needs in our county. Our areas of focus included chemical dependency services, shortage of dental providers, mobile crisis services, collaboration with our public health teams to support community concerns, fitting healthcare priorities specifically into rural settings, partnerships with county staff members, and transportation for medical appointments. We received responses from UCare, Blue Plus, and Medica, specific to Nicollet County. We were required to put together an evaluation team, so Jennifer Lambert, Tammy Simonson, and myself were the review team for Nicollet County. Based on the healthcare responses to our specific questions, our team would recommend UCare and Blue Plus to be our continued managed care programs moving forward. DHS does require that the board approve these recommendations, so I would request the board support the recommendations in the form of the resolution that was submitted.
We have a resolution before us. I'd entertain a motion for the resolution.
So moved.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. Discussion. Specific questions? Seems pretty straightforward. No discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
Well done.
you.
Thank you. Since we have a public hearing scheduled for 10, if it's acceptable to the board, I will just simply proceed on with the rest of the agenda, and we will move forward. So, well, he finds his way to the microphone.
Yes.
Good morning, Seth.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff. Several items from Public Works today. The first to discuss potential lighting of intersections on the Trunk Highway 111, Trunk Highway 22, 2020 rehab project. As you heard at the last board meeting when MnDOT was here, they gave an update on their overall construction plans for various trunk highways, and in 2020 they will be doing a rehab of Trunk Highway 111 and 22 from Nicollet up to Gaylord. And so with any of these rehabilitation projects, MnDOT always inquires with the county if we'd like to consider intersection lighting with any of our county roads that intersect with the trunk highway. And so if we're interested in pursuing lighting of intersections, what typically happens is MnDOT will include in their plan set the entire installation of the lighting system. They will pay for that installation, and then the county's responsibility is to maintain that facility from that point forward. And so in the past, on past projects, the county has participated in intersection lighting with county paved roads with the trunk highway. We have 3 paved county road intersections with trunk highway 111 and 22, intersections at County Road 1, 5, and 15. One thing to note, the intersections with County Road 1 and 5 were identified in our 2012 Nicollet County Highway Safety Plan as intersections that would benefit from intersection lighting. There are given proven safety benefits of intersection lighting, and I would also ask the board then to consider lighting the County Road 15 intersection at that same time. Cost to operate these intersection lighting systems have gotten cheaper over the years, especially with the installation of LED lights. We are currently seeing, if you have an intersection that requires 2 lights, approximate power cost is $35 a month, and that's about half price versus using the old high pressure sodium fixtures. So if the board is interested in pursuing intersection lighting at these 3 intersections, I can pass that information along to MnDOT, then they will develop the cooperative agreements, and then I would bring those back to a future board meeting.
Mr.
So
Chair.
I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, in the interest of safety, I think we would all agree that this would be a good idea.
If I might, and Jack, I was kind of wondering, so 1 and 5 were identified in that 2012 study, but 15 wasn't.
Yes. The study would look at, I'll have to go into some detail here.
Well,
With the advent of the county safety plan, typically most rural counties don't have enough crashes throughout the county to really develop trends. And so when that safety plan was put together, the consultant was doing these plans for all the counties across the state. And what they did is they took all the crash data from the entire state, and after having a big enough sample, they were able to determine trends. Say an intersection is skewed, traffic volumes on the county roads versus the trunk highways, certain risk factors would show up, and then they would apply those factors across the state to these different intersections. And so 1 and 5 must have met the check marks for certain criteria, and that's why they got recommended into the plan.
I do share Commissioner Kolar's conclusion, do all 3. But I was just interested if 15 wasn't.
Yeah.
Well, and we're also, that was done with old data. I mean,
Sure.
if you look at traffic loads and everything has changed from
Yes.
some of that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Is this gonna be lighting only, or is there gonna be some flashing light or something too?
No, this would be lighting only, street lighting.
That's the best way to,
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there is already flashing at 5.
yeah.
Doesn't
with
seem to
stop
do any
sign.
good.
Well, but at least you'll have a reference point, the light in the night.
Yes.
So, and the lighting at 22, 111 intersect now will remain the charge of the MnDOT?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, so is what Maria's saying correct, that really hasn't helped, that flashing stop signs on number 5?
It's hard to say.
Okay.
It may help,
But
it
we're
may
not
not.
gonna-
I know there was a recent crash there, and from the accident report, the vehicle had stopped and then pulled right out in front of the semi, so.
Okay.
The flashing stop sign may have
Nothing
done its
stopped.
job, they
Yeah.
stopped,
Yeah.
and that was
And if we
human
wanna
error
add
at
that, we'll
point.
have electricity there anyway.
Pardon?
We'll have electricity at those intersections because of the street lighting. If
Yes.
we wanna add flashing.
Yeah, typically those flashing
Or solar.
stop signs and whatnot are solar
Okay.
powered at this point. Yep.
So are we looking for a motion?
That was gonna be my next question, is,
Seth, are you looking for a
I
motion?
don't know if
or
I
just a
necessarily need a
consensus?
motion,
or
just
is
a
it
consensus
consensus?
to work with the
I think we
DOT to
should
have them
I- I-
Go
develop
ahead.
the agreements, and then
would
I
I
would
be fair in
bring
making the statement
agreements
that we have a
back.
consensus to move forward in this particular area?
Yes.
I think you have a consensus
All right,
to
sounds
proceed.
good. The second one I had for the board's consideration is consider MnDOT Agreement 1034758 and a corresponding resolution. That agreement and resolution are in your board packet. This agreement deals with the County Road 14 slope slide issue. What this agreement allows MnDOT to do is to be Nicollet County's agent in accepting federal funds on the local government's behalf. And then, of course, it assigns particular roles and responsibilities for MnDOT and the county. This agreement is for federal funds that will be used to fund preliminary engineering costs and investigate and develop a remediation plan for the slope failure on County Road 14. The rough estimate at the time the agreement was put together was that preliminary engineering could run as high as $160,000. Typically with federal funds, there's an 80-20 split. So the feds would cover 80% and Nicollet County would contribute the other 20%. Phase one of the initial preliminary engineering will be commencing. Gale Tech Engineering and with SRF Consulting is embarking on that endeavor. This week, it's planned that a drill rig will be showing up to do soil borings out there. And so this is phase one of the preliminary engineering tasks. That contract is approximately $45,000. And what they will do is, of course, do the soil borings. From those soil borings, they will do slope stability analysis on those materials, and from that then they will determine a various list of possible solutions to fix that slope. That's phase one, and so at phase one we will pick one of those solutions to go with. Then we'll embark on phase two, which will be taking that particular solution and developing the plans and specifications to ultimately then have bidding documents for the ultimate repair of County Road 14. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about this item.
Have any specific questions?
Well, Mr. Chair, that 80-20 slip, or 80-20 share thing, that we did a month ago, we approved it, correct? For the preliminary engineering?
What you approved last month is to give me the ability to sign the
Okay,
contract with
okay.
Gale Tech Engineering as SRF to embark on phase one here. Yep.
Mr. Chair, just note, and Seth, I want to thank you because there's always that tension between do the work now
Mhm.
and work to get federal assistance. By working to get federal assistance, you save the county $128,000 if it goes to $160,000.
Yes. Yep.
Does your support equal a motion?
Yes, I'll move the resolution. I think move the resolution is the motion.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. The resolution involves enacting the agreement, so we're good to go. Any other discussion? Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Just add a little bit too, is based on what phase one is, the anticipated expense there. I would imagine phase two would be maybe around the same dollar amount, 45,000, maybe a little bit more, but I anticipate that the 160,000 will probably come in under that for preliminary engineering, so.
Then will there be another round of this once the fix is determined, do we have some other FEMA dollars involved in that also then potentially?
Well, this involves federal highway disaster
Oh.
funds, and I believe for when we get into construction and construction engineering, there is a base MnDOT master partnership agreement that the county has executed several years ago, and I believe that agreement will take care of MnDOT accepting federal funds on behalf of the county. I don't believe another agreement will have to be approved by the county board for that that round. I could be totally mistaken given that these are different federal funds, but what's a little bit different here too is typically when federal funds flow to the county for construction projects, it's been MnDOT's and state's policy that we don't expend federal funds on engineering. We want those federal funds to go to actual construction projects. That's for our normal federal funds that typically flow through for highway projects. But given that these are disaster dollars, engineering costs are then eligible for federal funding. So a little bit different with the two different programs here.
Mr. Chair, just a quick procedural question for our county attorney. We approved the resolution. The resolution authorizes the county administrator and chair to execute the agreement. I don't know that we need to also have a motion to approve the agreement, although it says that in our notes.
If the resolution is authorizing signing the agreement, then you're correct. Because that agreement doesn't change, so it's accurate.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lipke?
are we done with what's on here? I was wondering if Seth could give a little, I mean, you and I have talked about the progress of County Road 1 and County Road 12, and you could give us all an update on that, and maybe what you know about the Y intersection in New Ulm, how that's going?
Just a
I don't know
snapshot.
anything about the Y intersection. I've been buried with our own
Sure.
issues,
Okay.
but hopefully with some dry weather that moves along and they're able to at least maybe open up the Y intersection
Yeah, we did.
before the
Didn't we
bridge
vote?
into New Ulm.
Oh, it will
is-
be before the bridge,
Yeah.
We voted. I'm sorry, Seth, I need to stop you a minute.
Sure,
There's a
no
little procedural problem we need to resolve. We did do a vote.
Correct. Commissioner Morrow made the motion. It was
Jack
Seconded.
seconded.
And
But we didn't vote.
Yes,
didn't
we
vote,
did.
though.
no.
We did not
Well, let's
vote.
vote then.
Call the question.
I apologize. I thought we had.
Which questions?
All those in favor of the motion to pass the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have now voted.
All right.
So that portion is
At
done.
least once.
Now, please proceed with your brief update.
I'll try
I
to
know
be
that's
brief.
painful.
All right, County Road 1 culvert collapse. I have received all the cultural and environmental resource approvals. Once I had those approvals, then there was another summary document that I had to put together and sign and send to the DOT saying that all these different issues have been checked off and we've received clearances. That was sent off right before the July 4th holiday weekend. I am now waiting to hear back from MnDOT on final approval and return of our plan set and whatnot. Once I have that, then I am able to go out and solicit quotes for this work. And once we have quotes, I will be coming back to the county board to have hopefully one of those quotes approved and move forward with a construction project. Given that it has been a wet year, I have some concerns that contractors are quite busy and full of work, and it'll be interesting to see who will possibly be available to complete that work. So I have no definitive timeline on exactly when that work will happen, but the process continues to move forward. It's not stalled out.
Okay, how about our County Road 21 bridge project?
21 bridge project, that project is going to be delayed now until next year. We have gotten to a point in time where if we weren't bidding it out and receiving bids now, this project just cannot get done this year. So we will be looking at doing this project probably right away. Next year, we're still working through different approvals on that project. I recently received a letter from the State Historic Preservation Office. I had sent materials on our proposed project to them. They had 30 days to comment on what we were proposing, given that we are next to Fort Ridgely and next to two historic districts out there. I received a response from them just last week, right at the end of the 30-day comment period. They generally agree with the installation of the bridge, but, and this is what they say, we do not agree that the proposed use of concrete form liner to mimic stone construction of the railings and abutments is appropriate. The design feature of the new bridge potentially presents a false sense of history and therefore does not meet the standards, which I don't quite understand anything that they wrote in here, and we'll be following up on that.
Mr. Chair, I find ironic because last year when Seth and I discussed this project, I think one of the reasons you included that design was because of the location and aesthetic.
Mhm.
We wanted an aesthetically appealing bridge for that area, and they apparently don't agree with that, so.
Yeah, you know, back in the day, County Road 21 wasn't paved. It probably didn't have a gravel surface. Putting a bridge in, it's going to be a modern day bridge, which doesn't meet any of the old ways of building anything. So this letter's a bit perplexing to me, and I will definitely be following up on it. Some of the standards that they reference and whatnot, I went and looked up myself, and they're so wide open to interpretation that I need some more information from them on this.
Okay.
So that project will be delayed. It was going to take up to 75 working days to complete that, and so those are actual days of work that's completed, not calendar days. So, yeah, we more than likely we'd have snow before the road was open. So the culverts will be fine from now until next year. So we'll just plan on the project next year. County Road 12 update. We continue to work on developing that project. We had a lengthy meeting with the utilities yesterday to go through the entire project, what the proposed work is, to figure out what concerns they had, what kind of conflicts that their utility lines would have to our project. There will be a significant amount of relocation of utility lines and whatnot that they'll have to do out there. I know we have above ground power poles. Brown County REA serves the area. Their plan is to bury that line and remove the poles completely, which will definitely be nice. But we continue to put that project together, and stuff's going on with that every single day, and it feels like construction's around the corner, but we got a lot of work yet to do before that project is ready to go. So that's my update. If anybody has any
When
other
do you think that's
questions.
Specific questions?
When do you
Commissioner
think
Lipke?
the contract will be let on number 12?
I can't give you a definitive date on that. That'll be sometime in the winter.
Okay.
That's the anticipation.
That's a
So
good
we can,
answer.
I mean, the goal is to start construction next spring.
Okay.
That's our goal, unless
Okay.
something comes up that derails that, but
Mhm.
that's the plan.
You looked pensive. Is there a question in there?
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Yes.
Any news on the build grant for the extension from 14 to, from Nicollet to New Ulm?
No, I believe that the submission of that grant was going to be happening this week, so I don't think as of today, or maybe it's happened, maybe it'll happen today. But that was going to Federal Highway, I believe, this week.
Yeah.
There was some kind of deadline for yesterday.
I thought it was
Something.
July
I think
9th.
that was the
So-
comment, one of the
Yeah,
comment
comment
periods.
period. We've, as a board, we support that.
Yes.
right? So,
Well, the deadline was probably for comments into the DOT so they
Yep.
can finalize their application and submission. The submission's probably happening then later this week if the deadline was yesterday for
and
comments.
Mr. Chair, members, I don't want to get ahead of this, but I'm, in just listening to some of the MnDOT folks, they seem fairly hopeful, and I don't know if we should be engaged in that hope or what, but
It's always good to hope.
Yes, hope is a good thing.
It's getting a lot of press, and that just kind of adds to things too.
Yeah,
And encouraging people to comment.
right,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
All right, good, thank you.
Anything
Thank you.
else?
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
We're gonna proceed on, we have the Economic Development Service Agreement that's presented by by Administrator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one item here today. Nicollet County is a member of the Regional Economic Development Alliance, or REDA, which is essentially the local government arm of Greater Mankato Growth. Current members of REDA are Blue Earth County, Nicollet County, Eagle Lake, Lake Crystal, Le Sueur, Mankato, North Mankato, and St. Peter. Attached is a revised cooperative service agreement of REDA that spells out the role of REDA members working together to promote economic development in the Greater Mankato regional marketplace. The agreement also provides the role of Greater Mankato Growth in REDA, which is to provide marketing efforts related to economic development in the overall region. With this agreement, they typically have a signing where we all gather and officially sign it at one time at a future date, and then you'll see at the bottom here, this also includes our membership fee to REDA, which is $18,513.63. And that is based on a population formula. We have been members of REDA and Greater Mankato Growth for about 5 or 6 years now.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, Mr. Chair, thank you, Ryan, for the report. I serve on the REDA board and would, in case, just as a reminder or for information purposes, Le Sueur used to be part of it and then came off of it, and Waseca now is indicating an interest to at least join this group as well. In fact, that was a meeting that I attended here a couple of weeks ago. And so to me, and I believe Ryan agrees with where we are at, to have that seat at the table in that metropolitan counting area is what they, I don't know if that's the right word or way to put it, the statistical area. It's important, I think, that we continue our partnership with this group, and I would encourage us to at least consider that as we vote today.
Are you making that as a motion then?
Yes, I would like to continue on with our relationship with REDA.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any additional discussion?
The only note I would make, Mr. Chair, is that as we think about the financial commitment of the county, the city of Mankato, for example, makes 8 times that commitment in terms of a per capita. So there is the formula does reflect the relative value and relative population size, Jack, if I have that correct.
Right.
And I mean, Jerry, Mankato is like the magnet, and we're kind of, that's the key city, if you will.
Yes.
So, right.
And essentially, our portion covers our townships and our small cities, similar to Blue Earth County is doing the same thing. Their larger cities being members, and that population is taken out.
Yeah, so our participation will help the Cortlands and the Nicolets of the world and the Lafayettes. Yes.
Any other discussion?
How often do we renew this? Once a year? or
That's
what?
annual. The agreement is only, every 3 or 4 years when it's just
Okay.
time to look at it and make revisions.
Okay.
Annually, it's just part of our budget process if we want to participate or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We're gonna grind right into our reports. Chair's report, since we were through the holiday, we had our last gathering. I've attended a MRCI Executive Committee meeting, and then I'm back with you again today. And we'll start with Commissioner Liedtke today.
No official meetings, a few constituent calls.
Very good. Commissioner Morrow.
I'm just trying to recall whether I went to the FCC meeting before or after, but I went to the FCC meeting and also had a conversation with Excel about the Huntley.
Okay, so at some point you had a meeting at the FCC, right? Okay. Commissioner Drannell.
I attended the DNR presentation on the County Road 12 management area on the 24th up in Cortland. And I attended the Brown Nicollet Community Health Board Conference call on the 27th. And other than that, it's been pretty quiet.
I was in Cortland also.
Commissioner
Yes,
Kollars.
thank you. Just one meeting, that RITA meeting in Waseca, where we listened to their interest about joining RITA and possibly moving in that green seam direction. And Ryan has said you'll maybe invite that green seam director to come before us?
Right, I plan to invite, he's part of Greater Mankato Growth, but it's their ag initiative, to have Sam Ziegler, is his name, attend a workshop and give a presentation at Green Seam.
And I think
He's a good
that
guy.
very interesting and very sharp young guy who's been with the green seam for several years, so I would look forward to that. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner meeting and conferences. Do we have anything on the agenda?
Nothing new.
Don't think we do now. For those that have been receiving those WHO notices from the White House, just that is legitimate. So if there is an interest in that, I think there's an info online piece tomorrow that was just sent out from them. So you may want to review that, and I think 20th of August is the meeting date for that departure. I just would point out that is a board meeting day. That's a Tuesday, so just so you're aware of that. Entertain a motion for per diems and expenses.
Move it.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the board meeting, and we will then convene the ditch authority meeting at 10 o'clock, the prescribed time for the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. That's Lipke, Kolar's seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned until 10 o'clock. Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Drainage Authority meeting. I have a consent agenda item here. I'd entertain a motion for the consent agenda, which represents the Drainage Authority minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion on the minutes? None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We are now at the top of the hour, and we have scheduled public hearings for landowners affected on Nicollet County Ditch 77, 77 Lateral 1 Branch 4, 77 Ditch 77 Lateral 2, and Ditch 77 Lateral 3. We will open that meeting, and our initial component for this is we will have Jackie indicate the notification of hearings.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the
Morning.
board. Notices for the redetermination, this is the final redetermination hearing for these ditches. All notices were mailed on June 20th of 2019. It was also posted on June 20th, 2019, and published in the St. Peter Herald and the Lafayette Ledger on the 20th, the 27th, July 4th, all of 2019. There was also on July 2nd an informational meeting held here. So landowners, we had the opportunity to talk about their benefits, and Ron, the viewer, was here to answer any questions, and so that went very well. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
Thank you. So those in the gallery understand the procedural. We are going to handle each specific section as indicated earlier. one at a time. We will go through that process, and then once we've completed the process of that section, we'll go back and go through each one. So just so everybody's clear about that. And Mr. Rehnquist, our viewer, will have a presentation initially for County Ditch 77.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I may, what I would like to do first, rather than going through the general process explanation 4 times, if I could do a general presentation that will be the same basic for all of them, and then we can address each of the 4 separate reports as they exist, rather than having to, repeat myself 4 times. As Jackie had said, the purpose of this hearing is for a redetermination of benefits. A redetermination of benefits is not changing the existing ditch system in any fashion other than to reestablish the benefits provided by that system into a current dollar value and a consideration of current land uses. With most older systems, when they were established, a determination of benefits was completed to show that the project was feasible, and that report has been used up until today to assess all maintenance on the ditch system. This was built 60 plus years ago, and many things have changed within that 60 years, including the addition of all of the laterals that are addressed in separate reports and all of the farming practices. The thing that had not changed was the ditch's original constructed configuration, nor how maintenance was assessed to those. So a redetermination is only revaluing what already exists with the assumption that all of the branches and lines are in a reasonable state of repair and providing the original constructed capacities and depths. To do that, what we do is a mass appraisal. And by that I mean we value the properties within the universe or the watershed of each ditch system as a single unit and establish a general classification as to how to separate the benefit value from the overall property values within that. It's done through a classification similar to what the assessor does, where you set a value for each class of property. We do that as 4 general classes, and we call those the A, B, C's, and D's. And it's based on the conditions we anticipate would have existed prior to artificial drainage. A lands would be lands that were standing water, cattail, and in our opinion would have no agricultural other land use value. B lands would be those lands that were seasonally flooded but that would dry out enough during the summer months to be hay or pasture. The biggest change in benefited areas then are to this, what we call the C and the D acres. C acres are acres that typically are farmable even without artificial drainage, but they benefit from either improved surface and or subsurface drainage. And the D acres are the upland acres that were never considered to need the ditch for production, but they do benefit in value and contribute to the need for the capacity of the ditch system because of their change of land use. So we went out and delineated the watersheds, the physical watersheds, which is the taking from the top of the hill to the bottom where the ditch system outlets, viewed all of those properties within that watershed and valued or classified them by ABCD within 40-acre tracts, government lots, or smaller tracts depending on where the parcels were at. Once we had done that, then we looked at what value was added to each of those land classes. A land class of hay and pasture versus if the ditch system met NRCS design standards for recommended capacity, would say that you'd go from pasture to good productive farmland. During major storms, it still may be impacted because the open ditch recommendation is for a 1-inch runoff in 24 hours or about a 3.5-inch rain under normal ambient moisture conditions. I don't know what that is anymore, but there was something once that said this is normal. So then we would determine a value difference, assuming that that changed from hay and pasture to that good farmable ground. The A lands went from standing water cattails to tillable acres The C lands went from tillable acres to improved tillable acres, and the D lands became part of the larger fields. And what I say is they gained an improved farmability and value according to that. Because when we do that, then we look at market sales and we analyze the sales within Nicollet County. As we know, there are no pure sales. I can't go out and find a wetland that I'm going to drain and say, well, it was worth nothing before it was drained, and I've drained it and I've tiled it, and now I'm going to sell it for $8,000 an acre. With regulations, that doesn't happen anymore. So what we do is we analyze the sales, and we do the same type of comparison. A 80-acre tract that's sold may have A, B, C, and D acres within that. We then break that sale down and try to say, if it sold for $7,000 an acre, that was the average value. Some acres may have been worth $5,000 and some $9,000, but the average value then of that sale would have been $7,000 an acre. We also then support our value considerations with what is in appraisal is the income approach, and that is we say what would it produce as an income without artificial drainage compared with what it will produce on an annual basis with adequate drainage and reasonable farming practices. To do that, we look at an optimum production of, in this case, corn and soybeans. We look at a reasonable weighted pricing, and then we subtract from that production cost. Production cost does not include land cost, nor does it include full equipment depreciation or value, because you own that equipment whether you're farming through wet acres or dry acres. The equipment is still required to be the same. We would then come up with a change in annual income based on that production. We subtract from that present income, the improved income, the value of the income prior to conversion or drainage. We also then subtract what we said was $900 an acre. In order to get the optimum production, you have to pattern tile all of those acres. So we depreciated that out equally over a 25-year anticipated life. We then take and capitalize that change of income or the total income against the total sales values that the market indicates and come up with a capitalization rate. The capitalization rate that we use currently on this system is only 0.5%. As everybody in agricultural knows, it's not very profitable right now, but market sales are still remaining relatively strong. Yeah, they've come down in value, yes, but not as much as commodity pricing. So we know that short term anyway that we're looking at, you're not getting a good return on your investment. The investors that are buying land are apparently looking at longer term investment and still anticipating the good years with the marginal years we're having right now. So with that, we reconciled the market sales, but then we typically use as our optimum production those that are supported by the income. We have said that the potential benefit to the A acres is $4,030 an acre. To the B acres is $3,180 an acre. The C acres $1,960, and the D acres $560. To determine the benefits of each individual parcel, then we apply that value adjusted for two considerations. One is the hydraulic capacity of the system. As within this system, there is open ditch that does meet NRCS standard for 1 inch. There are also tile branches and lines that do not meet that 1 inch capacity. So we adjust the benefit value based on the restrictive capacities of those tile branches that do not allow the same discharge or drainage as those on the main ditch. We also consider a location consideration, so that if I'm a half a mile away from the ditch, there's an additional cost that I will have to bear in order to utilize or gain access to that outlet. So we make a locational adjustment as well. In some cases, we combine those two because you have only one place that says how much is the potential benefit. And when we combine the two, rather than having a hydrologic efficiency on the class as a whole, we have an efficiency that includes both proximity and hydraulic consideration. So if I'm on one of the tile branches that does not meet capacity and I'm still a half a mile away from the ditch, I probably get more benefit than a guy that doesn't have a tile, but not as much as the people right on the ditch. So we make adjustments to that. We do look at the value of tile. The value of tile as a benefit is figured at $2.25 a foot. All it is a single branch that the individual does not have to install. It is not size dependent because the additional size of the tile is to accommodate other people's water upstream from that property. As the statute requires, we also look then, because there is open ditch on everything except for lateral 1 of branch 4, we looked at the acquisition of the grass buffer strip easement. We did not consider the existing governor's buffer initiative in valuing that. We looked at that as if the land use was the same as prior to that governor's initiative. The value of that land then is considered the difference between its current condition, which is not the best ground because it is the existing leveled spoils, and it will remain with some value because it still can be cut as hay or used as access. And we've allowed $6,000 per acre for the restrictions placed upon that first one rod adjacent to all of the open ditches on the main and the 3 laterals that have open ditch. Like I said, the lateral 1 of branch 4 is a tile only, and there are no buffers on that. Okay, so the other locational adjustment consideration was at near the outlet end, because at the outlet end, the ditch also doesn't have the same capacity as it does further upstream. Every ditch starts someplace meeting a natural condition. And at that natural condition, you've changed nothing. You have to extend upstream, and so if you're 140 upstream, you maybe only got it 6 inches deeper than you did where the outlet was. So it takes a certain reach in order for the ditch system to provide the recommended capacity and the benefit. So I think that is the general process that we go through. We did it for all 4 sub-watersheds. We did consider an outlet benefit for the 3 laterals that drain into the main ditch 77 as a benefit to each of those laterals because the main ditch provides the place for them to drain into. That outlet benefit considers the value added or cost savings that those laterals would recognize in a shared basis because they don't have to extend their outlet further downstream. It also considers the potential that these may be consolidated in the future, and so we looked at how the combined values would be impacted so that nobody pays more one way or the other for the same amount of benefit, whether they're the outlet benefit share or consolidated in the future. So that covers, I think, all of the general process. If you would like, Mr. Chairman, I will address ditch 77, or if there are questions on the viewing procedures.
Commissioners, do you have any questions on procedural up to this point? And then, Mr. Rehnquist, please proceed on County Ditch 77.
Okay, the main ditch of County Ditch 77 says if I've got it correct, was established in 1956. It consists of about 8,000 linear feet of, boy, that's not right. 3,800 feet of linear open ditch. It's way more than that. It serves as an outlet to sections 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 26, 27, 28, 34, and 33 and 34 of Lafayette, and sections 2, 3, 10, 11 in South Lafayette Township. The outlet is into an unnamed stream and then into the Minnesota River. As I said, we did a classification of all of the benefited tillable acres within the watershed. It was our determination that within the watershed, containing 6,966 and 3/4 acres of benefited land, that there is 435 acres that would have been non-usable for agricultural purposes, 756 acres that would have been usable for hay and pasture, 3,111 acres of tillable sea land that would benefit from either improved surface or subsurface drainage, 2,663 acres of upland. I have 29,500 feet of tile benefits, and that we will acquire an easement on 58.06 acres of buffer right-of-way. The one thing I guess I did not cover is that we do benefit roads and other properties within the process. Roads are benefited based on a cost savings, as there are no road sales or sales values that you can interpret. So we look at a reduced construction and maintenance cost being applied to the roads based on current construction values, similar to what we did by upgrading the market values on the agricultural lands. We have determined that lateral 1 of branch 4 would receive a $90,000 outlet benefit. Lateral 2, $125,000 outlet benefit. Part of that reasoning is lateral 2 outlets very near the bottom of the system, and that lateral 3 would benefit by $160,000. Road benefits would be $80,882, and land benefits of $10,472,506, for a total benefit of the system of $10,928,388.92. We had included a estimated maintenance cost. The maintenance cost was estimated to be a $100,000 annual levy. We know that there is $336,000 worth of buffer acquisition, so eventually that cost will be at least 3+ times the estimated cost, spread out over whatever terms the board may determine. But the $100,000 is a nice round number that helps individuals figure out what percent of the ditch system they're responsible for maintenance. Okay, that should.
Questions of this?
How many acres of buffer?
58.06 acres of buffer. Buffer damages are calculated the same way. If there are areas that are not currently tillable acres, they were not paid $6,000 an acre. They were paid based on the change of value that this restricted use has created.
And that 6,000 is based on recent sales in that
Yes,
area of
and
the county?
it's basically, we said it was 7,000, and the residual value would be $1,000.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'll ask you to step back and then we'll open it to comment. At this time, I would allow for public comments or questions to this particular ditch. Again, this is County Ditch 77. Please come to the podium and state your name and address. This is for 77. We're going to, again, as I'm reminding you, we're doing this in sections as indicated.
I'm Tim Weibel, 45438 541st Avenue. My wife and I own a parcel of property, and we do have buffer included on our property. And a couple things. The value of a buffer, so I've owned that land for 5 years. You're giving me half the value that I paid for that property. Not to everybody in this room, it's not worth that. To me, it was, because of the way my farming operations exist with our family. And I feel that that's very short for what we need. And this last year, I never even called in, but something happened up there that really upset me. I put my buffers in like the law required me to do that night. I finished that night. in the dark, putting these buffers all in. And when they clean the ditch, there's 3 different areas where they put spoil on top of what I just seeded for the buffers. It's like, you know, the county shouldn't have to babysit these contractors. You know, I think you guys work with these contractors enough that they should know to put this spoil out of the 16.5-foot buffer. So I haven't done nothing with it yet, but my only option probably is to go up there with my loader myself and then hand seed it again at another additional cost to seeding it in. You know, and it's just frustrating is what it amounts to. It's just, I feel bad for some of these county employees. Right now, with all these buffers going in, they were stretched very thin. But, so that's my point. I think short-sightedness on the cost of reimbursement on the buffers, and then, you know, these buffers are, at $60 an acre tax, which we average a little bit stronger than that, I'm burning that up in 10 years. I have nothing left except for, and I'm the one that's has to keep and maintain. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weibel. Any additional on 77? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing on County Ditch 77. And at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve benefits presented for County Ditch 77.
I move, we go ahead.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Discussion. Commissioner Lipke, you look like you have a question.
Well, in regards to Tim's comments about the buffer, there are actually forces that want to value that buffer at what it is now under the restrictions it has. And we as a board went along with the previous sales in the area. I mean, it could have been valued at $2,000 an acre instead of $6,000. So I know it's not good enough for the landowner, but it's better than it could have been.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, I will call the roll. On motion.
Roll call, Jan.
Sorry. I threw a curve too.
Yes.
Commissioner Fuller.
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow.
Yes.
Pentel.
Yes.
And Kemp.
Yes. We have now the proposed findings that have been given to each board member. At this time, I would like you all to review the findings, items 1 through 10, and we will need to approve the findings. So I would entertain a motion on, after your review of the items of findings, and they are in your, I think you all received them electronically, so you should have them. Anybody have any question with that? If not, at your leisure, I appreciate a motion.
Could I ask a question at this time?
Yes.
At your informational meeting a week ago, was there much discussion or controversy?
No,
Okay.
there were some questions that were answered,
Okay.
but no real controversy
Okay.
as to the redetermination portion anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the findings as presented.
We have a motion for approval.
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We are now going to jump back to our next segment. I'll ask Mr. Rehnquist to come forward again, and we will now be discussing County Ditch 77, Lateral 1, Branch 4.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Lateral 1 to Branch 4 is a shorter system. Established and completed in 1957, it only consists of approximately 1,580 feet of drain tile, therefore it has no buffer within it. It serves as an outlet to portions of sections 20 and 21 of Lafayette Township only. As it is only tile, it does not provide the same outlet capacity as the main ditch, but it also has a very smaller watershed. The lateral 4 has what we would consider 14 A acres, 20 B acres, 86 C acres, and 89 D acres for a total watershed of only 209 acres. And as I said, it consists of 1,580 feet of tile. Subsequent, there is also very little road benefit. A little bit of Lafayette Township Road is all that's included. With that, we have determined that the current benefit for lateral 1 of branch 4 is $6,344 of road benefits and $263,939 in land benefits, for a total benefit of $270,284.15.
Any questions of Mr. Rehnquist? Hearing none, I'll ask you to step back and we will open the public hearing portion again for County Ditch 77, Lateral 1, Branch 4. County 77, Lateral 1, Branch 4. Do we have anybody that would like to speak to that item? No one is coming to the microphone. We will close the public hearing. And I lost my place. Excuse me one second here. I'd entertain a motion for the proposed redetermination on County Ditch 77, Lateral 1, Branch 4.
I'll move it.
Commissioner Lipke, motion.
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Morrow. Call the question. Or, I'm sorry, was there any other discussion? Hearing none, call the question.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Morrow?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes.
Kohler?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes unanimously. And then I would open and on your review of the findings, entertain a motion to accept the findings.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Again, these are on the findings published. You have copies of for County Ditch 77, Lateral 1, Branch 4. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Rehnquist, we'll bring you up again. I know this is repetitive, but we have
It is,
process.
it is the process.
It is the process, so, and we have many. So, this portion, your report will be on County Ditch 77, Lateral 2. County Ditch 77, Lateral 2. Mr. Rehnquist.
Yes, Lateral 2 was originally constructed in 1964. I have it has about 14,260 linear feet of open ditch and 9,120 feet of tile. Why do I have that? Oh, I have it as two different links. I'm sorry. That's because it includes Lateral 2C and other branches that were included with that. Okay, so Lateral 2 is on the easterly side of the Ditch 77 watershed. It is open ditch above and below a 24-inch tile that was constructed through a deeper cut through the hill. That tile does restrict the discharge from the easterly portion of the Lateral 2 watershed, and we have subsequently adjusted our efficiency rate to reflect that restriction. On the westerly side, Lateral 2 has some that is right on the ditch and does have adequate outlet. East of that restrictive tile, there is a reduction to where there's a maximum of only 80% of the value of the ditch on the west side of that. The watershed has 138 acres of what we've considered A acres, 151 B, 715 C, 430 acres of Ds, for a total benefited watershed of 1,435 acres. It has 8,490 feet of tile and acquisition of 10.84 acres of buffer, both above and below where that restrictive tile is. Road benefits we've determined to be $18,530. Land benefits of $2,180,326 for a total benefit of $2,198,856.43.
Any questions for Mr. Venquist?
Mr. Chair, this restriction, that's the one between Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Weibel? Is that the one you're talking about? Is that?
I'm sorry, I don't know owners of properties. I look at
Okay.
the ground and parcel numbers and apply the names, and
And how often does that back up where there's a high level in your ditch now?
Too often. And I went down there with a rake, this spring, raked all the corn leaves out in the chaff. And there were trees broke off, and I didn't dare touch them, because I thought if I fall in or a branch falls in and gets caught in the 24 inch somewhere, we're in bigger trouble. Well, then I got a hold of Nate Henry, and Nate and Steve came out and looked at it, so they said, we're gonna get a backhoe in and get them brush out of there. Well, when the backhoe was there, which was Dvorak, I believe, he dipped in with the bucket, and he hit something hard, and he says, well, what the heck is in there? And I says, well, you're hitting the end of the apron. No, I'm not. In front of that apron, somebody had put brick and concrete, which now was higher than the apron. After he ripped that out, I think our water went down 4 more inches. But something needs to be repaired there yet. We're kinda, it's a wait and see. There's water running past the tile and underneath the road and getting back into the tile again. So it's kind of a wait and see, but it backs up.
yeah, the benefits that were determined hydrologic impact was
Sure.
based on the information gathered and determined by the engineer that is working for the board on the improvement of that branch.
Okay.
So I'm sure it assumed that it didn't have a restricted outlet and was working to the best of its as constructed condition.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Rehnquist. Open the public hearing section. Ask those that wish to speak to this issue on ditch 77 lateral 2 to please step forward. Identify yourselves with your address and make your commentary. Mr. Schmidt.
Al Schmidt, 39243 561st Avenue, New Ulm.
Good morning.
I gotta agree with Tim Weibel's remarks before about the 6,000 per acre on the buffers. I've got a third of the buffers on this lateral 2. And I understand some of the earlier buffers got more money.
I believe, Jackie?
Does anybody know the dollar amount?
I don't know it on the top of my head. I'd have to pull back and see what other ones have been taken.
I think $8,200 rings a bell for some reason, but this was a couple years ago before values went down.
See, and I met with Ron before this meeting because I missed the one last week. And he explained a bunch of things, and I understand how they're coming up with the amount, but just because our ditch is redetermined 2 years, 3 years later than somebody else's, just because we got put on the bottom of the list, or, in between, and hit a poor market, why should we suffer? Shouldn't we all get the same? I got a heck of a chunk of land that's laying idle now. I guess that's about all I got to say. But something for you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
Mr. Rehnquist might want to respond to that.
Did you want to speak to that, Mr. Rehnquist?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will address, you know, as our value is based on current market sales, we do understand that purchase prices and land values were higher some years back. We only can base our value on today's values because that's what the market indicates. If I was to have to buy it or sell it today voluntarily, that's what we would get. So I don't disagree with them that the values were higher, but market values were higher in the past as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rehnquist. Anyone else like to speak on 77 lateral 2? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion for the proposed redetermination values.
I'll move that.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. And Jackie, you're stepping forward, so I think you have a discussion item here.
I do. On the findings portion, the value amount is listed as the wrong column. It should be 2,186,393.68. So the findings needs to be amended in the motion for the findings when you get to that part.
We will come back to that when we're ready for the findings. Does everyone understand the change that she's describing?
Let's, if we might, Mr. Chair, if we could vote on, I think we can still vote on the resolution.
Correct.
Then we'll
Right.
come to the findings, we'll make
Yep.
the correction.
Yep, I just wanted to make sure that you approved
But if that
before
changed
you know.
anything about your
Right.
decision about the initial vote, that's why I'm asking the question now. We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion on the original motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Kolar?
Yes.
Morrow?
Yes.
Drentel?
Yes.
And Kemp?
Yes. Now I would entertain a motion on the findings as indicated in your packet with the correction as indicated, and please be real specific on the correction so it's a matter of our record. Take us to that.
Can you put that page down? Thank you. All the way down.
Okay.
Did you get the dollar change?
I did not write it on my, these are my signed copies, so.
2,186,393.68.
Okay. Just looking for it on our sheet on the findings.
Is it highlighted specifically on the primary finding sheet?
Number 5.
So you're replacing and you're subbing the number of $315,212.17.
Correct.
Correct?
Yep.
So that number will be corrected to
Yep.
reflect, again,
Yes.
state the value?
Yes.
Yeah, I
2
got it.
million. You got it.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would move approval or acceptance of the findings with the following change. In finding number 5, to delete the number 315,212.17 and to insert the number $2,186,393.18 in
68 cents.
Sorry, 68 cents. And that can be found on the documentation that we received on
Attachment.
the final page,
Also attached
attachment.
to it. So we have a
Attachment
transfer
A.
issue.
Attachment A.
Attachment
And I will second that motion.
A motion, we have a second. Any other questions? Is everybody clear on the motion? I see heads of approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Mr. Rehnquist, I think you're up again. We are now discussing Nicollet County Ditch 77 lateral 3. 77 lateral 3. Please proceed.
Yes, lateral 3 is located within the northeasterly portion of the overall 77 watershed. The numbers I read originally were from this lateral 3. There's 3,850 linear feet of open ditch and 8,080 feet of tile. It affects sections 4, 5, 8, 9, and 15 of Lafayette Township. The subwatershed has 51 acres we considered A acres, 60 acres of B, 185 acres of C, 253 acres of D, and 500, for a total of 549 benefited acres. It will acquire 3.83 acres of buffer. With that, we have some of that meets design standards, and some of the tile branches that are not up to recommended capacity, certainly. We have road benefits of $17,654, land benefits of $764,207, and recommended total benefits of $781,861.11.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask Mr. Enquist one question.
Right.
Mr. Enquist, I may be looking at the wrong thing. I'm looking at the final page of the attachment, which has all the different land values and has total benefits as the very last line on the very last page. I've got 784,000. I wrote over it. I apologize. $784,696.11 of total benefits. The two numbers are slightly different. Did I miss?
I think you're looking at the right one.
I may not be looking at the right one. Maybe that's what I'm asking.
I'm reading my copy, and I would have to double check to see which one is the correct number.
This is
I accept that I may be looking.
78 1 86111.
Yeah, I just all right.
That matches. My spreadsheet
I will
matches.
Okay.
my
Yep.
concern.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Rehnquist? None? I'll ask you to step back and I'll open the public hearing for, again, County Ditch 77, lateral 3. Please step forward, state your name and your address. One more time. Seeing no motion, I will close the public hearing, and I would entertain a motion on the proposed redetermination for, again, County Ditch 77, lateral 3. I'm sorry, I'm looking at 3. We're at 4?
Mm-hmm.
Then I have a problem.
No, it's
I
3.
think we're on 3 according to this sheet.
Haven't we been talking about lateral 3?
Lateral 3.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
This
I,
is 4, it should be 3. Okay,
You okay?
we're good.
All right, I just want to make sure.
I'll move that.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Again, the motion and second are for accepting redetermination findings for County Ditch 77, lateral 3.
That's the last one, right?
That's correct.
Yes, but I think the confusion was our script sheet did not.
Oh, it's
was
different
not-
on 2 different
it was-
spots.
Exactly, it was,
Okay.
there were 2 different pieces. It was merely a clerical error on our part. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Lippke?
Yes.
Kolar?
Yes.
Laurel?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
And Kevin?
Yes. Having resolved that, I would entertain a motion for the findings as indicated in your packet.
I move the acceptance of the findings.
We have a motion for acceptance of the findings.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on findings issue? Have you resolved your number issue? Are you comfortable with that? Okay. Anything else? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I believe that completes our work in that particular topic. Is there anything else that you had, Jackie, on that topic?
Not on the public hearing.
On the public hearing. So we will consider that matter resolved. And I think we have a setting of date, don't we? We have final hearing for redetermination on County Ditch 11, County Ditch 12, County Ditch 12, lateral 1. Is that correct?
That is correct. Those 3 ditches, the viewers have submitted their final reports for redetermination. So I'd like to set the public hearing for that for August 13th at 10 a.m.
That should be a regular meeting date.
Regular meeting date.
Okay.
I'll move that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
Is there
you.
anything else you have for us, Jackie?
Nothing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rehnquist. We appreciate your patience with us and patience for the process. So, thank you very much. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the Drainage Authority meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.